Hello again, everybody. My name is John D. Healy. I do a podcast. It's called It's Good to Talk, and it sure is good to talk. Some people know me because I produced this book for my good friend Stoney McGurn. The book is called And That's How It All Started. He was born in 1941 in Ireland. So the book is like stories of him growing up in Ireland, growing up here, all the different jobs and different careers he got into, from truck driving to taxi driving, down south during the Troubles and all that. A lot of factual history in the book as well. Some little naughty bits, but don't worry about that. You can get it on Amazon. It's on audio, and it's also on video. And I did a podcast here of the audio part, so if you could listen to it on this podcast too. My sponsors are Liffey Van Lines. That's a moving company here in New York City, and they've been around as long as the New York City Marathon, and they're running very smoothly. So when it comes to moving, let Liffey do the lifting, but you can't buy experience. And indeed, experience is what we might be touching on today. The topic today is health and wellness, and my guest is Michelle Wexler. Michelle, welcome to my podcast.
Thank you for having me. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween and happy holidays and happy Thanksgiving and happy Christmas, because time is flying by. So tell my audience a little bit about your background first, like where were you born, and then we'll get on to your recent work in health and wellness. So where were you born to start off with?
I actually was born in Brooklyn,
Okay,
in New York. So I'm a true New Yorker. I was born here. I was raised in the suburbs of Long Island, not very far from the city. I was fortunate that I lived close enough to the city, so I really got to enjoy a lot that Manhattan had to offer as a very young girl.
of
You
course.
know, yeah. So I felt very lucky growing up in the city. I learned how to drive in the city.
Um,
I love dodging cabs.
yeah,
So pretty much that's where I was born and raised. I went to school out there. When I left New York to go to college, and I ended up in Colorado after college as well, so that I stayed till about my 30s, actually. So I came
okay,
back to New York City later in life than
okay.
most of the people that I grew up with.
And
And
what did you study in college?
actually, I studied theater,
Okay,
drama, theater, fine arts, and art history. My
okay,
parents wouldn't pay for a college if I was only going to do theater because they felt I should be acting and going for auditions. So
okay,
art history was a nice minor,
okay.
balancing it out.
That sounds interesting.
It's
So you had a pretty
yeah,
interesting,
yeah,
uh,
it was. But actually, my acting career, I loved it as a child, not so much because I loved acting and watching TV and movies, but I felt as though I loved fantasy. So for me, speaking a different dialogue, pretending to be a different character, those were all ways of, I guess, my coping tools, just my living in fantasy worlds,
okay.
wanting to be something else.
So speaking of want to be, would you describe yourself like a lot of teenagers growing up? I mean, both girls and guys. Like, were you a wannabe star, maybe?
Yeah, well, I was a pretty gregarious kind of child. Just my mother made me, my parents decided, my sister and I are 14 months apart. So to spread us out a little bit, they skipped a grade. So I skipped a grade very young. Like, I don't think I went to kindergarten. I think I
Okay,
went right to first grade
okay,
so that my sister and I had some space from one another. So for a lot of my high school years, I was the youngest in my grade. So I got my driver's license in Florida. Like I had to do a lot of things as the youngest.
okay.
And that kind of shaped me a little
Are
bit
you the
because I
youngest
was,
in the family?
no, I'm the oldest in the family and the
Oh,
youngest in my grade. So
okay,
for me, it was a lot of chasing. And
okay.
I did do theater in high school a little bit, but that I kind of didn't find that to be the hip thing to do. I was a cheerleader.
Mm,
I liked tennis. I fell into a girls group that I knew from going to camp in the summertime. So I didn't really choose my friends. It was more about location.
okay.
So high school was kind of very fast. I grew up very fast in the high school because it was just a different generation. It was
Hmm.
like the last of the freedom,
Okay.
where we could, yeah, last of freedom.
Well, that's interesting that you say that you didn't pick your friends. Well, I
No,
assume okay. So I assume you had friends growing up as a teenager.
yes, I did.
Okay.
Lots.
Lots. Of it's good
Yes.
to know. Friends are always good. Yeah. Very, well, family and friends, but friends are equally as important as family, and sometimes maybe more important if you have good
Yeah.
friends. Yeah, indeed. So a little bit more about I was reading some stuff in your profile that it's like you were dealing with different issues that teenagers
Yeah,
deal with.
I
So talk
was. I
about that.
didn't really realize that until I really came back to New York in my 30s.
Okay.
A lot I can look back on my high school years and my 20s, which I lived in Colorado, and
Mm.
a lot of my experiences in life were driven a lot from I suffer from mental illness. So a
Okay.
lot of it was an invisible illness,
Okay.
that I didn't know about. And so
Okay.
first theater was the coping tool, then
Okay.
music was a coping tool.
Well, music is always good. Yeah.
Music has been the constant in my life because it just moving your body changes a thought. Always
Right.
my mantra. Yeah.
Right. But it's good both physically and mentally
Yeah.
and therapeutically, actually. I
I
did a
feel like they should play music all the time, like in this very somber times that we're living in.
right.
If we had music, it would heal people because music is a healing tool.
Right. Well, I did have Barbara Vesely on here a few months back, and she was talking about suicide prevention, and some of those topics came up about the
Yes.
various types of
Yes.
depression, like
It is a
from
big combat for depression. Like if you have a bad thought, trust me,
mm,
moving a muscle, changing a thought is the first thing. Going for a walk, moving your muscle. But the
yeah,
second is putting on music. Put
yes,
on music, not depressing music. Put on music that makes you uplifting, that
yeah.
can change that feeling. Yeah. And
I'm a
then
big
music.
fan of Petula Clark. I'm sure you heard of Petula Clark. She's still alive, I assume, in her late 80s. But she had a great song, like, Downtown. So if you're feeling like a bit lost and lonely, well, get up and go downtown, go out in the city and
Go
meet
out in the
people.
city. Yeah.
And you're going to meet people, and it's good to talk because that's the name of this podcast. And people listening, my guest today is Michelle Wexler, and we're going to be talking about alternative wellness, health and wellness topic. And of course, we did talk about music. Also had Dawn Doherty on here. She is a dance teacher and she teaches music as well. And she actually does like what she calls dance therapy for both younger and older. So yeah, music and dance, I definitely agree. So moving along then, what other issues had you to deal with growing up?
Well,
You mentioned attention deficit disorder.
yes, I had that. I suffered from anxiety and depression, and there was a network in my brain. I used to always say to people that I just felt different. I can't explain it. There was just something that was different about
Right,
me. I was very fragile and
right,
heightened sensitivity.
okay, all right,
That's
okay. And how did you, other people added
so
on,
kind
how
of
did you deal with all that?
when I moved to Colorado after college. It
Mhm.
was kind of I went there for theater. I was in the Aspen Theater Company, and like went there for theater. I went there. I got a job in an art gallery, and then I got a job in a retail store. And the evolution of my time in Colorado was I ended up starting a snowboarding company, making children's clothes. And the reason why I did that was my first 4 years in Colorado, I was kind of falling down a little bit of a slippery slope.
Okay.
It was just things were not going, I was falling into bad people,
Mm.
precarious situations. It just wasn't the healthiest environment.
Okay.
And I don't really know what the catalyst was, but something shifted in me. And I came up with the idea. It wasn't because I love snowboarding. I had a crush on a man. And it ended up,
Everybody.
yeah, I wanted to keep him in my life. And I ended up starting a snowboarding company. And that company changed my life because, you know, I did it at such a young age. And to be able to get clothes on a stranger and from a concept to actual production to actual stores, it was a huge accomplishment. It was almost like my child. And when I had to close it, it was almost like losing that. So I kind of took
Mm.
my personality, my obsessive compulsive personality
Mm.
of thinking, and directed it towards work before it was directed more to
Mm.
destructive things, where I moved it towards work. Because,
Okay.
the thing about having this kind of brain is you can be very destructive or it can be very productive.
Right.
It's very extreme. And
Well, you were very creative.
thank you.
Yeah, I mean,
And
you were creative, I think, to have started a business at a young age, number one, and like
yeah,
something obviously novel and different and unique. And
it
you,
was. I was the
yeah,
first one to do it. So I was the
okay,
pioneer. And the
Right.
pioneers do get slaughtered in the end. It always does that way.
Well, sometimes, not always, sometimes.
Not always, but
Yeah,
sometimes.
sometimes, yeah.
It was a little bit before my time and I was
Okay.
undercapitalized. So we closed the company and I moved
Mm.
back to New York.
Okay.
And that kind of threw me in a whole new career because now I already had this successful outerwear company. So immediately when I came back to New York, I had a job with Nautica
Okay.
running their outerwear department. So I was thrown into the garment center.
Okay.
And that was really I was lucky because you're right. I was creative. So
Okay.
I was able to, but no one wanted me to stay in creative. It's
Mm.
ironic that I went into the garment center as a head merchandiser designer,
Okay.
and yet I never stayed in that position for more than 3 months. They always moved me to sales.
Mm.
And I contribute that a lot to my acting because
Mm.
when you study theater, they
Mm.
teach you a lot about reading people and
Right.
to mirror them. And
Yeah.
they also teach you to be very cognitive of your surroundings
Okay.
and to imitation, feel
Right.
their feelings, take
Okay.
them on like an empath.
Right.
So that actually made me really good in sales,
Okay.
made me really good with people.
Yes.
It made me just connect in a very easy way. I had no idea it was just the training. It was training that I had
Well,
had in my past. Yeah.
people skills
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
always good. Are always, it's a good asset to have,
Well,
as
I think
opposed to
they
the opposite.
say thespians become lawyers, politicians, thieves, or salespeople.
Well, they're either in jail or not in jail, And
I'm
some of them
not sure if that's true or not, but
and
they
some of them
do.
in jail are creative because some of them write their best plays and novels while they're in jail. But getting back to you, my guest is Michelle Wexler. Let's get
So
to how
anyway,
you.
I came back in the garment center, and
Okay.
that's really where I ended up landing for about 16 years until I had this stomach monster. I really did. I had a stomach monster for like 2 decades where
Okay.
people couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. And I was going through a lot of tests and endoscopies. And I think the tests were creating more a problem for me than
Well,
actual the stomach monster. I just decided to live with the stomach monster and
mm,
accept that I have it.
well,
And it wasn't until 2017 where someone had said to me, why don't you try plant-based products as options rather than over the counter or pharmaceuticals
okay.
or, instead of taking Advil or taking Tylenol, do
Okay.
peppermint. They started giving me suggestions on like ways to really heal without taking pharmaceutical drugs,
Okay.
for anything. So
Okay.
that was really the start of me changing my physical well-being,
Okay.
and that helped my mental well-being.
Mm,
So I had been struggling with my mental health
mm.
issues for all of my 20s, all of my 30s. I think it was my 30s that they started putting me on medication.
Okay.
And
Just going back to that for a minute, because I've kind of
yeah,
an interesting viewpoint on it. Maybe it's a bit like the white coat syndrome, when you go and get your blood pressure done, your blood pressure spikes because you're afraid of the nurse or the doctor, and all of a sudden they tell you have high blood pressure. Now your blood pressure gets higher again because they tell you have high blood pressure. So in your case, if you're going for various tests on your stomach, you're obviously having anxiety, which is creating maybe stomach cramps and stuff like that. And
correct.
I'm not a medical
No,
expert.
it's mental. It's mind, body, and spirit.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we agree on that. So let's get on now to the alternative healing that you're about to
Yes.
explain to me.
Yeah. So that's how I got introduced to it. I got introduced through essential oils to replace my normal remedies.
Okay,
Like if I had allergies, I would take lavender instead of going and buying Zyrtec,
okay,
and things like that. I would start replacing natural remedies with things that I used to use that were synthetic.
okay,
And as I started healing on the
okay,
inside,
right,
I started looking better. My skin got better. I started also drinking mushrooms at this time. Mushrooms, not psychedelic mushrooms, but shiitake, cordyceps, like a whole blend of mushrooms.
okay,
Um, lion's mane, all these mushrooms. While I was also taking essential oils, and I was
okay.
also starting to drink greens, like superfoods.
So how did you take the mushrooms? Did you
It
cook them or
was a powder form. I
Okay.
decided to go off of coffee. So I decided to go off of coffee as one of those things that were bad for my stomach,
Okay.
and to replace it, I replaced it with mushrooms because mushrooms gave me natural energy,
Okay.
not the, like caffeine, same
Great.
concept,
Okay.
just switching the products,
Okay.
and that's so I was drinking mushrooms, I was drinking greens, I was doing essential oils, and in I have to say 90 days, that's short of a period of time. I
Okay.
have a picture of my all three of them.
Okay.
My skin cleared up.
Okay.
My I lost weight.
Okay.
I didn't have stomach issues.
Okay.
And my mind started to get a little bit better. Like I was not as fragile,
Okay.
not as depressed, anxiety. I wasn't going up and down the scale so
Okay.
much. It's kind of moving
Those are all very good and positive changes.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
I
yeah.
think in 90 days, that's a great success story in itself. Okay.
And
So,
then and then it moved me to other things. So as I was getting better, I ended up being a spokesperson for a lot of these products. Like first
okay.
it was essential oils, then it
Okay.
was the live out, the mushrooms and the greens.
Okay.
And I was just sharing with people my experience. I wasn't
Okay.
like making anything up. I was telling them
Okay.
how I drink it and how I
Okay.
use them. So,
Okay.
and that
So,
started my company. That basically started Roots of Sunshine.
okay. What's the name of the company?
Roots of Sunshine.
Roots of Sunshine. Well, that's a beautiful name, number one. Roots of Sunshine is very, I guess, a positive um, name for a company because you look like sunshine, so that's good.
Okay.
My guest today is Michelle Wexler. We're talking about alternative wellness and healing. So getting back to some of the oils and all that, I know you mentioned, say, lavender is good for,
So lavender is great for scars and burning. Like back in the day when we didn't have pharmaceuticals and cavemen or people from tribes used to burn themselves, they would wrap their arms in lavender leaves to stop with the burn.
okay,
We had silicate, and
okay,
they would also it helps with scarring. Also, it's a natural antihistamine. So if you put it on your wrist, it goes into your blood. It
okay,
doesn't have a time release like Zyrtec.
okay,
It probably has to be reapplied, but it does
okay,
the same thing.
okay, good. That's very interesting because I did a podcast last week about Halloween, and I went back to the pagan times before Christianity. Pagans believed in the sun, the moon, and the stars. So the sun is interesting, but the
So are
pagans,
plants. So
the pig,
plants are medicine. Plants are the basis for all of our synthetic medicine. They're what we mirror and
yes,
what we also use in our medicine.
okay. No, I totally agree. And that's the point I was making, indeed, about the roots of sunshine. So it basically goes back to pagan times. I saw another one of your products listed, and it says the word Terra, Trra. Is that correct?
doTERRA.
doTERRA.
doTERRA. Those
Okay,
are the essential oil brands, correct?
that's an essential oil brand, and I like that name too because I actually studied Latin in high school. So terra means from the land, and terra firma means, I think it might be used in law terms as well. Like terra firma is meaning being on solid ground. So terra firma is a good place to be. And it's an excellent name for that product too. Where are the products sourced?
So doTERRA is sourced all over the world globally.
Okay,
It depends on where the plant is, and they also do a co-op. So they don't just go into a country and exploit it. They train all the farmers,
mhm,
and if they have to get them registered with the government, like in
okay,
Africa or places, they do.
okay,
And they all grow.
okay,
They teach them to make money rather than extort the money from the land,
okay.
and it's part of community. So it's
So
called
they
doTERRA.
become like somewhat self-sufficient, yeah.
Yeah, it's called they have a name of the organization. It's nonprofit, but it really supplies a lot of the training, the growing, the registering for the
Okay, so it's
farmers.
like a cooperative, yeah.
Yes, and they also get the communities involved so that they can give jobs. And this is one thing that's very interesting about doTERRA. They pay their farmers the whole entire year, even though the crop might only need to be picked and grown
Okay,
because they don't want it to be picked earlier.
okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
But well, I like that concept too because when you say different parts of the world, because sometimes, like I was born in Ireland, and for USA people that go to Ireland for the first time, they get fascinated by the colors of the countryside, and they say like 40 shades of green. Well, the reason we have 40 shades of green is the climate, because we have a lot of rain. I mean, I shouldn't say a lot of rain, but we have sufficient rain that keeps the grass healthy and green, and the soil is good as well. So when you come across products like Kerrygold butter and Cadbury's chocolate, a lot of those products are a result of the land, the terra firma where they were produced. So that's just a side kick, because I want to mention growing up on a farm myself, as I did. And
Yeah. Well, plant, that's why we say about people laugh when they always say that plant medicine or whatever medicine. It really was medicine before
oh,
pharmaceuticals.
absolutely.
Really, plants, I mean, to this day, some countries still use eucalyptus for asthma. I mean, they do.
Right.
You
Yes,
boil it and you breathe it in, and it helps with asthma. I mean, I do
definitely.
that myself for
Okay.
wheezing.
All right. That's interesting.
Yeah,
Okay. Well, we'll keep away from the Clorox and the bleach. I'm not a big believer in that.
exactly. Exactly. Well, there's a lot of also everyone's so quick to go to the inhalers.
Right.
Before you go to the inhalers, try a little boiling of eucalyptus and putting a towel over your head and
Yeah.
breathing it in. And,
Yeah.
you don't have to go shooting to the steroid. Just saying.
Okay. Well, I'm impressed with your story, and I'm also impressed with your creativity, and I'm also impressed that you had such good results from trying the products. And you
Well,
know,
it moved, you know what it did? The plants moved me in the direction of wellness.
right.
Sometimes people think that they're healthy because they're exercising every day and, and they're leaving out gluten. And, as I said to you at the beginning, it's a mind, body, spirit.
Right.
So you get on a hamster wheel, like you're feeling in a bad mood. So then you want those things that are immediate gratification, like ice cream and potato chips, whatever it is you're craving. And then you feel depressed because you gained some weight. And then you're like, you don't want to motivate to go, exercise. So it's kind of like you get on these, but you
Mm,
can also get on the other hamster wheel,
right.
which is I'm doing plants and I'm feeling good and I'm looking better. And maybe I want to continue
Right.
with this and I want to keep going and keep
Right.
going and keep going. So that's where I was. I was in the keep going, keep going. But so I've mastered my physical ailments with
Mm,
plants and and that was great. And
okay.
my mental did feel better
Right.
because I was healing from the inside out. Yet I needed more. I did. And that's where psychedelics came into my life. And that's only been about 2 years. And I've been working in this field for the past 2 years.
Okay.
But I only got here through cannabis. Like I got here through being open
Okay.
to essential oils, open to great mushrooms, open
Yeah.
to cannabis, open to now psychedelics.
Okay. So, like, tell us more about the list of products in the Roots of Sunshine, I guess.
So in Roots of Sunshine, there's New York City Botanics, which is the CBD and cannabis for medical.
Okay.
Jill's story is Jill's someone you can maybe want to this podcast as well,
Right.
because she's great. She really is a great success story. And
Okay.
she has been surviving pancreatic cancer.
Okay.
Her doctors said that she was supposed to die, and her son is in college now. Just FYI,
Okay.
I just took her to Boulder,
Okay.
my school.
Right.
And so her company I represent because I know
Mm,
it works, and she
okay.
works with cancer patients.
Right.
Um, and Live Ultimate is another one, and AG1 is another one that
Okay.
Live Ultimate is my mushrooms that I drink. They're all, I can give you all the information that's on my
Yeah,
emails.
we'll look at some of the websites and all
Right,
that.
exactly.
I did another podcast here with Sergey Yanov. He is a scientist in Sloan Catering, and we had a good discussion about brain cancer and all that, and brought up the aspect of God, indeed, even though I'm not a religious person. But his thing, he did agree with me that if you have a belief, so if you believe in the sun, the moon, and the stars, good for you. It's better to believe than not to believe, and to have
Oh,
hope.
yeah. You
You
have
agree
to
with
have
that?
something greater than yourself because it's otherwise you have to carry the weight of the world. That's a lot to carry.
That's a lot to carry.
If you can't release it to someone better than yourself, then I feel bad for those people because
Yeah,
that's a lot.
I feel bad for them too. And like up at Liffey Moving Company, we're big believers on helping people to declutter. Like if you have old furniture or stuff you don't want, when you're moving, it's a good time to declutter And that can go for
Seasonal, John.
seasonal
Seasonal, you
and
could declutter.
Michelle, I agree with you on the season thing, but sometimes it can go for friends as well. Maybe friends that are taking advantage of you and they're burning up your energy because they realize you're someone that likes to help people. So you have to maybe get rid of those people too if they're just using you, because I call them users, and then I just kind of shun them and put them away.
I call them
Well,
energy suckers.
well, energy suckers is energy suckers is that's a good name for them. So I must tell my listeners if they're tuned in, if you know any energy suckers in your life, it's time to declutter. Call yeah, there you go, declutter. Call myself or Michelle here, and we'll help you with the declutter. Well, you are a breath of fresh air, and you're a ray of sunshine. I must say, you're like a bright light on a dark road. So tell us, how can people contact you?
So you can, well, I can give you my email. It's Michelle@rootsofsunshine.com.
Okay,
All one word, roots plural.
okay.
And that's the best way. And then I have all my websites on my signature that I can
Yeah,
always send.
what I'll do is I'll put up your websites and the other ones that you mentioned too on the end of this podcast, so people will be able to read a little bit first about some of the products and then learn a little bit themselves. And then if they need to get in touch with you, they can reach out to you for more information. And I hope they're not energy suckers. I hope they're people that are able to
You
share.
know, I'm an empath by nature, so I have to tell you that I've gotten so much better at the red flags and following my own intuition. So
Okay, good.
I have less energy suckers in my life because
Okay,
I'm learning boundaries.
okay, good. Well, I the same I can say for myself. I have eliminated so many of those guys. I mean, down the years, not all at one go, but little by little, you say, what the hell am I hanging out with you for? You gotta be realistic
Not
with
a good look for me.
well, you gotta be realistic with yourself sometimes too, and you gotta be nice to yourself as well and kind to yourself, because if you don't love yourself, you can't love someone else. So, Michelle, it was a real pleasure to have you on today, talking about alternative wellness. And I've had other alternative wellness people on. Elite healers here will be busy now with marathon season. And after marathon, people have to recovery time, I think Adam Cardona calls it.
Well, the marathon actually is interesting because I'm consulting for a company called Flolo Holistic, and they have cold plunges. And that is a great way after a marathon, go to
Okay,
a cold plunge.
okay,
That's a good one. You know what I mean? Like, because it's great before and after. I haven't done it yet because I'm a chicken, but
okay,
it's great for the muscles. Really is.
good. Well, I remember back in Ireland, I did the flotation tank, which is basically, it's like a small swimming pool of cold water, but it's infused with salt, sea salt. But I did float in the Dead Sea as well, because you can't swim. You have to float in the Dead Sea. But that's the density of the salt makes you float. So I did that a number of years ago. I don't know if I'd float now or not, but it was an interesting experience to try the flotation tank. So, Michelle, I'm going to leave you shortly. It's been a
Sounds
real
good.
pleasure talking to you. I
Happy
hope
Halloween. And it's a moon, a
happy
very special
Thanksgiving.
moon tonight.
Yeah, Thanksgiving might be next after this podcast, and then Christmas, of course, and then we're into brand the whole new year. So we've a lot to look forward to in the year ahead, totally. So from me here, I'm going to say Slán Awalia, and that means till I see you again. Slán Awalia and Slán Gafol, and Sláinte means good health in Irish. So
And
thank you.
namaste to you.
Okay, so thank you. And to my
Bye-bye.
listeners, if you like, subscribe. It's free to subscribe. Okay, from John D. Healy, it's good to talk. Slán. Bye, Michelle.
Bye.